her whole body aching. She had cooked the entire dinner by herself. Pots of stew, trays of roast chicken, salads, desserts, everything. She cleaned the house, decorated it, set the table, and made sure everyone felt comfortable. But her family barely looked at her, barely said, "Thank you," barely noticed how hard she worked. She told herself it was fine. "Maybe tomorrow will feel better," she whispered, pulling the blanket over her tired eyes. She fell asleep hoping the next day would bring at least a little love, a little appreciation, maybe even a warm "Merry Christmas" hug. But when she opened her eyes the next morning, something felt wrong. The house was too quiet. Not peaceful, empty. No footsteps. No voices. No clinking dishes. No TV playing. Just silence, heavy and cold. She sat up slowly, her heart beating faster. She called out, "Sayabonga? Larato?" No one answered. The air felt strange, like the whole house was holding its breath. Thandai walked into the hallway, expecting to see someone, anyone. But every corner she passed felt lifeless. A strange feeling grew in her chest, confusion mixed with fear. It was Christmas morning. Families were supposed to be laughing, opening gifts, eating leftovers. But in her home, nothing, not even a sound. She didn't know it yet, but that silence was the beginning of the moment that would change her entire life. Thandai's legs felt weak as she moved through the house, one room after another, just hoping that she was wrong. She started in the living room. The Christmas tree lights twinkled, ornaments reflecting soft glimmers across the floor. The smell of roast chicken and spice still lingered in the air, but the chairs were empty, the stockings untouched, and not a single person in sight. She moved to the kitchen. Dishes from last night sat neatly stacked, leftovers in the fridge, but no one was there. Usually, Larato would be bouncing around, asking for a snack, and Sayabonga would be making his morning coffee, teasing her about her cooking. But today, silence, heavy silence. Her hands began to shake as she walked past the bedrooms. Their beds were perfectly made, as if no one had slept there at all. No suitcase left behind, no little forgotten bag, nothing. Her heart started to race. She fumbled for her phone and scrolled through messages, hoping for at least a single text, a "Good morning, Mom," "Merry Christmas," anything. But the screen was empty. No notifications, no missed calls, nothing. A cold knot of fear and confusion twisted in her stomach. Slowly, realization began to sink in. They weren't just asleep or hiding a surprise. They had left, intentionally. Thandai sank onto the couch, clutching her phone. Questions spun in her mind. Why? How could they just leave? After everything she had done. After all the effort, the cooking, the cleaning, the hours she spent making sure Christmas was perfect for everyone. Her hands shook and tears pricked her eyes. She could feel the sting of betrayal, sharper than she'd ever imagined. The people she loved, the people she trusted most, had chosen to abandon her. On Christmas morning, she pressed the phone to her chest and whispered to the empty rooms. Why would you do this?" The silence answered back. "Me. Cold. Unforgiving." Thandai finally understood. This wasn't a mistake or an accident. It was deliberate. And in that moment, the reality hit her harder than any Christmas morning joy ever could. She was completely, utterly alone. Thandai sat on the edge of the couch, her phone trembling in her hands. She had been staring at the empty house for what felt like hours, her mind racing, her heart pounding. With nothing else to do, she opened social media, hoping to see a message, a post, anything that explained where her family had gone. What she saw made her chest tighten and her hands freeze. There they were. Sayabonga, her husband, smiling widely, his arm around Larato, her stepdaughter, who was laughing as if nothing had happened, and Mama Kuda, her mother-in-law, raising a cocktail glass to the camera. Behind them stretched a white sandy beach, crystal clear water sparkling in the sun, palm trees swaying gently in the breeze. Mauritius. Luxury resort. The caption made her stomach drop. Family Christmas getaway. #blessed #holiday vibes. Thandai felt like the world had tilted under her feet. They had left. On Christmas. On her Christmas. The day she had spent cooking, cleaning, decorating, and making sure everyone else had a perfect day. They had abandoned her. Her throat burned as tears welled up. How could they post pictures, laugh, and enjoy themselves while she had been alone in the house, exhausted and ignored? She scrolled through the photos, each one worse than the last. Sayabonga sipping champagne, Lorato building a sandcastle, Mama Kuda lounging under a sunshade with a wide smile. They were happy. They were having fun. Without her. Her fingers hovered over the screen, not knowing whether to scroll further or throw the phone across the room. Every laugh, every smile, every sun-soaked picture stabbed at her heart. Thandao sank deeper into the couch, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. She felt small, invisible, and completely betrayed. The people she had devoted herself to, the people she had worked so hard to care for, didn't even think she was worth bringing along. In that moment, a fire began to burn inside her, raw and sharp. This wasn't just sadness. It was betrayal, humiliation, and anger all rolled into one. And as she wiped her tears and stared at the images, she whispered through trembling lips, "Never again. Never." The photos didn't just break her. They lit the spark that would change everything. Thandao sank onto the couch, her body trembling, her tears soaking the cushions beneath her. She had spent years giving everything to her family, cooking, cleaning, listening, sacrificing her own happiness so everyone else could be comfortable. She had smiled through the stress, hidden her frustrations, carried the weight of their needs on her shoulders. And this was how they repaid her. By leaving her alone on Christmas morning, by posting happy pictures of themselves on a beach while she sat in an empty house, heartbroken and ignored. Her sobs shook her from the inside out. She pressed her face into the pillow, wishing the world would swallow her up. For a moment, she felt completely powerless, like all the years of hard work and love had vanished into nothing. The silence of the house pressed down on her, heavy and cold, making the emptiness feel even sharper. But slowly, something began to change. The tears that had been pouring down her cheeks began to dry. The helplessness began to fade. In the quiet of the empty house, a small voice inside her started to speak, not of sadness, not of loss, but of strength. "Why should I let this break me?" Her chest rose and fell with steadying breaths. Her hands unclenched. Her heart, still heavy, began to harden in a way that felt powerful. Anger mingled with clarity. She realized she didn't need their approval. She didn't need their gratitude. She had been giving for them for years, but she hadn't been giving to herself. And now it was time to choose herself. She wiped the last of her tears from her face and looked around the silent living room, the same place that had made her feel so small just moments ago. She stood, a new fire burning in her chest. She whispered to the empty house, her voice quiet but steady. "Never again." It wasn't just a promise. It was a declaration, a shift in her soul. She would never allow anyone to make her feel invisible again. She would never give so much of herself for so little in return. And as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the window, Thandao felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: freedom, clarity, and the first taste of the strength that would carry her forward. The pain had been unbearable, but it had transformed into fire. And from that fire, she knew she would rise. Thandao sat quietly at the dining table, her phone still open beside her. The pain was still there, but the fire inside her was growing stronger. As she breathed in and out, one thought suddenly pushed its way to the front of her mind, one thing her family had always forgotten, or maybe never really understood. She handled everything, every bill, every payment, every transfer, every account. While Sayabonga acted like he was the provider, it was Thandao who kept the household running. She knew the passwords, the balances, the loans, the credit limits. She saw every single transaction that came through their accounts: hotel bookings, online shopping, even the Mauritius tickets that had been bought behind her back. Her fingers moved quickly as she scrolled through the banking app. She could see their expenses piling up: flight charges, resort fees, food bills. A bitter smile tugged at her lips. They didn't even try to hide it. They assumed she'd keep paying, keep fixing, keep saving them like she always had. But then another memory surfaced. Something she had pushed aside for years. Her father. His last letter. His will. Her breath caught. She opened the old email folder on her laptop, one she hadn't touched for a long time. And there it was. the legal documents her father had left her, shares in a tourism company, a piece of land in Kasani near the Chobe River, a dormant permit for a small lodge business. At the time, she'd been overwhelmed with grief and simply locked everything away, telling herself she'd look at it someday. Someday had finally arrived. As she scrolled through the documents, her heart beat faster, not with fear this time, but with possibility. She realized something her family never imagined. She had her own life waiting for her, her own future, her own wealth. All this time, she had been living like a shadow in her own home. But her father had left her a way out, a way to start over, a way to build something just for herself. She closed the laptop slowly, her hands steady now. The empty house didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a starting point. Kasani, she whispered, tasting the word like hope. The inheritance she had ignored for years suddenly became her escape plan, her freedom plan. And this time, she wasn't going to let anyone take it from her. Thandao didn't waste another minute. The moment her decision settled in her heart, she walked to her bedroom and opened her closet. For once, she wasn't packing for her family. She was packing for herself. She folded her clothes calmly, choosing only what she truly needed. No guilt, no hesitation. She tucked her father's documents into her bag, zipped it closed, and took one last look around the quiet, empty house. There were no memories she wanted to hold on to here. No voices calling her name. No warmth left in these walls. She turned off the lights, stepped outside, and closed the door behind her. Not with sadness, but with relief. The journey to Kasani felt like stepping into a new world. As the bus rolled past wide open landscapes and endless skies, Thandao felt her heart slowly unclench. By the time she arrived, the air smelled different, fresh, wild, alive. The sound of the Chobe River drifted through the wind, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. The next morning, she walked into the old office of the company her father had left her. Dust coated the windows, and the furniture was outdated, but it was hers. She activated the business license, updated the documents, and met with local officials who remembered her father's name. They welcomed her warmly, offering help and explaining the process of building a lodge. Every day, she woke up early and joined local guides, fishermen, builders, and cooks. She learned everything: how tourists traveled, what they loved, how the river changed with the seasons, how to market a lodge, how to manage staff. She listened to stories from elders, laughed with young workers, and made friends who treated her with genuine respect. For the first time in her life, people saw her, not as a maid, not as a background figure, not as someone to use, but as a leader, a partner, a woman with vision. With each passing week, her confidence grew. She felt her father's presence guiding her, reminding her she was capable of much more than the life she had left behind. The empty house in Gaborone faded from her memory. The pain no longer controlled her. Here in Kasani, under the wide blue sky, surrounded by the rush of the Chobe River, Thandai was building something new: her life, her business, her freedom. And she knew, deep in her heart, she would never be the same woman again. While Thandai was settling into her new life in Kasani, the perfect vacation in Mauritius was starting to crack. At first, everything was smooth: fancy breakfast, poolside drinks, beach photos. Sayabonga felt proud, acting like a big man who took his family on a luxury trip. But that confidence didn't last long. On the third day, when he handed his card to pay for lunch, the waiter returned with an awkward smile. "Sir, your card has been declined." Sayabonga frowned, embarrassed. "Try again." The waiter tried. Same result. Then came the hotel charges. Then the flight pre-authorizations. Then the resort activities Larato had booked. Every single one bounced. Sayabonga's face went pale. This had never happened before, because Thandai was always the one managing the accounts, making sure everything was paid. He pulled out his phone and called her. It rang once, twice, then went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. And again. Still nothing. His heartbeat sped up. "Why isn't she answering?" he muttered. Mama coulda rolled her eyes. Probably sleeping or sulking. But even she sounded unsure. Larato, annoyed and curious, said, "Let me check the camera at home." She opened the app and clicked on the feed from the living room. She expected to see her stepmother cooking, cleaning, doing something boring, but the screen showed an empty room. Completely empty. She switched to the hallway cam. The bedroom. Empty. Closet doors open, shelves cleared. Lorato's face drained of color. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Dad, something is wrong." Sayabonga snatched the phone from her hand. He stared at the footage, blinking hard. For the first time, true panic hit him like a wave. Where is her stuff? Lorato tapped the screen with trembling fingers. "Dad, she left," she shouted, her voice shaking. Silence fell over the three of them. Suddenly the ocean breeze felt cold. The luxury resort felt frightening. Mama Kuda stopped sipping her cocktail, her hand frozen mid-air. Sayabonga dialed Thandai again and again, his hands shaking now. Nothing. No answer. No message back. For the first time he realized something terrible. Thandai wasn't just ignoring them. She wasn't sitting at home waiting. She wasn't crying over their betrayal. She was gone. And without her, their luxury vacation was falling apart faster than they ever imagined. They didn't even finish their trip. The moment Lorato screamed that Thandai had left, everything changed. Panic spread through their little holiday family. Suddenly the resort didn't feel luxurious anymore. The cocktails tasted bitter. The smiles disappeared. Sayabonga spent the whole flight back to Gaborone shaking his leg, checking his phone every few minutes, hoping, begging for a message from Thandai. Nothing came. Not a single call, not a single text. When they finally reached home, they rushed out of the car and ran to the front door. Sayabonga unlocked it with trembling hands. The moment he stepped inside, he froze. The house felt wrong. Not empty, abandoned. Lorato walked in behind him and gasped. "Dad, look." Her closet door was wide open. Everything that belonged to Thandai was gone. Every dress, every shoe, every personal item that used to hang neatly was missing. Even the little things, her perfume bottles, her hair products, her jewelry box, gone. Mama Kuda hurried into the living room. "Check her documents," she snapped, panic rising in her voice. But the drawer where she kept everything, birth certificates, marriage papers, her father's letters, financial records, was completely empty. Not a single sheet of paper left behind. They searched the whole house in a frantic rush. Bedroom, bathroom, garret, even the laundry room. All empty, all cleaned out, as if she had erased herself from the place. Then Lorato noticed something on the dining table. A single white envelope. Her name written in clean, calm handwriting. Thandai. Sayabonga grabbed it with shaking fingers. He opened it slowly, expecting anger, maybe tears, maybe explanations. But inside was just one small note, one sentence, one message that hit him harder than a slap. "You left me alone, so I chose myself." His hands dropped to his sides. His chest tightened. For the first time, he understood the magnitude of what he had done. Lorato covered her mouth. Mama Kuda sank into a chair, whispering, She really left us." The house felt colder than ever. The silence felt heavier than when they left. Everything Thandai had done for years, every meal, every holiday, every sacrifice, flashed through their minds. And they finally saw the truth. They had treated her like she didn't matter. And now she was gone. Not lost. Not hiding. Not waiting. Gone, with her dignity, her strength, and her new life already started without them. They arrived in Kasani like a storm, angry, confused, and ready to blame her for everything. Sayabonga marched ahead, his jaw tight, while Lorato and Mama Kuda followed close behind, whispering complaints under their breath. They expected to find Thandai hiding, ashamed, maybe crying in some small rented room. But what they found instead stopped them in their tracks. Right by the Chobe River stood a beautiful riverside lodge. Modern, warm, and full of life. Local workers moved around confidently. Guests laughed on the deck, and boats floated gently in the water. And in the center of it all stood Thandai. She wore simple but elegant clothes, her hair neat, her posture strong. She was talking to two investors, pointing at new plans for expansion. Her smile was calm, her voice steady, her presence powerful. Lorato blinked in disbelief. "Is that her?" Mama Kuda's mouth fell open. No, no, this can't be. Sayabanga didn't speak. His pride cracked quietly inside him. When Thandao finally noticed them, she didn't flinch. She didn't look scared. She didn't rush over to explain herself. She just finished her conversation, thanked the investors, and walked toward them slowly, like a woman who had already made peace with her decisions. Thandao, Sayabanga snapped, trying to sound in control. We need answers. She raised an eyebrow. About what? About why you left, he said, voice shaking. Why you ran away, why you emptied the house, why you... I didn't run, she cut in softly. I walked away. Her calmness rattled him more than shouting ever could. Lorato stepped forward. You could have talked to us. Thandao gave a sad, tired smile. I tried. For years. None of you listened. Mama Kuda folded her arms. You abandoned your family. Thandao looked at her, unblinking. You abandoned me the day you went to Mauritius without a single word. Silence. Heavy. Awkward. Honest. Sayabanga took a breath, trying to regain control. Come home. Let's fix this. We can talk. She shook her head. There is no home to return to. He stepped closer, but she didn't move back. She didn't fear him anymore. She didn't fear any of them. With a steady, unwavering voice, she said the words that finally ended the chapter they had trapped her in. I'm not your maid. I'm not your servant. I'm done. Her voice echoed across the river. Her strength settled in the air like truth. Behind her, her lodge stood proudly, her work, her life, her future. And Sayabanga finally understood. She hadn't just walked away from them. She had walked into the woman she was always meant to be. Thandao never planned to share her story. But one quiet evening, as she sat on the wooden deck of her lodge watching the sun melt into the Chobe River, she felt something inside her shift. She picked up her phone and typed out everything. How they left her on Christmas, how she woke up alone, how she saw their smiling photos from Mauritius, how she walked away and built a new life in Kasani. At the end, she wrote one simple line that carried all her strength. They took a luxury trip without me, but I took a trip into a life where I'm finally respected. She posted it and put her phone down, thinking nothing of it. But within hours, her story exploded across social media. Women from Kenya, Nigeria, Botswana, South Africa, Ghana, Zambia, everywhere shared her post. People applauded her bravery, her courage, her decision to... You inspire us. This is the strength we need. Thank you for showing that self-respect is everything. Her story trended for days. News pages reshared it. Content creators discussed it. Her lodge bookings doubled overnight. Back in Gaborone, Sayabanga watched everything unfold with a heavy, sinking heart. He tried calling her, texting her, even showing up in Kasani again. He came with apologies, gifts, promises to change. But the old power he once had over her was gone. Thandao listened politely, then stepped back. You didn't lose your wife, she said softly. You lost the woman who kept your life together. He had no answer, because deep down he knew she was right. Now, Thandao wakes up every morning to birds singing and the river flowing gently outside her window. Her lodge is thriving, her team respects her, and her investors admire her determination. She stands tall, financially independent, and emotionally free. And sometimes when she looks back, she smiles. Not with regret, but with pride. She didn't just survive what they did to her. She transformed it